Chapter 5. Maybe it was silly to be so disturbed by a detail like an out-of-place clean floor. At once, Emma concocted all number of plausible explanations. For instance, maybe this was what the realtor was busy doing somewhere in the house. Maybe he was tidying up here and there for the shoot. Granted, that begged the question of why he would do such a thing to begin with. Why would you clean a floor, for instance, without moving some of these cardboard boxes out of the way? Why wouldn't you dust a little? Why would you care at all about cleaning any part of a miserable murder house, even if it was about to be shown on a news special? Emma wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly feeling more off-kilter than before. The flashlight tucked in her elbow, she studied the front hall. Dust everywhere again, except for the parts where there were footprints, and one fairly long, wide streak, as though a piece of furniture or a rug had been dragged along the hall, around the banister of the stairs, and up to the second floor. "Hey, intern! Emma! You in there yet?" Emma stirred herself from her reverie at the shout from the front lawn. She was obviously just unnerved by the environment. When everything from an innocuous greenhouse to a not sufficiently dusty floor was scaring her, it was a clear sign she needed to grow up. After placing a hand over her forehead, Emma strode to the hall's termination and opened the front door for the rest of the crew. The real estate agent's not answering, assuming he's still somewhere around here. "Well, maybe his car broke down and he had to walk back to town. Whatever. Saves me $50. Come on, people. Let's scout our location." Once Gary barged past Emma, Dana clacked in and regarded the dim foyer with a sour expression. "Smells musty." "Smells like perfection," corrected Gary, spreading his hands to demonstrate the residents around. "Look at this place. It's exactly what we need. Creepy, crappy, but very dramatic." Emma smiled politely as Tom passed her, because it was safer than responding to Gary's comment about the place by saying, "Guess you and this house have a lot in common then." Instead, she turned and lifted her eyebrows to attentive expectation as Gary said, "Chop, chop. It's time to hustle. Grab all the equipment from the van and get in here. We're going to get set up." No point in getting annoyed. This was her job, after all. Her unpaid, unappreciated job. But Emma had to admit, she was really starting to look forward to the day that she could tell Gary where to shove it. "I can do that," she said as he turned away. "But there's a problem." "Oh boy, what is it now?" "Well, the power's out." "Then turn it back on." Emma scoffed helplessly toward the other two people in the room. In her early 20s, as she was, Emma was always saddled with the vague sense that other adults were somehow more adult than her. They were therefore privy to a wider array of practical knowledges and solutions than she was. Tom and Dana, however, looked at each other and then at her, both of them totally useless. "I don't know how," she settled on telling him, shaking her head and spreading her hands. The response was the most infuriating thing of all. With a wave of his hand, Gary turned away, patted his pockets for a new cigar, and told her, "Then figure something out," while walking down the dark hall and around the corner to the living room. In the hopes of getting his help, Emma glanced one more time at Tom. "This is sure one amazing house," he said unhelpfully. Biting back a sigh, Emma quite literally rolled up her black and white striped sleeves and made her way back to the basement. Don't get her wrong, the house was still incredibly creepy. But Emma couldn't help thinking the flashlight was a divine gift. If a rat or a spider were about to attack her, at the very least, she would see it. She swept the beam across the tiles of the kitchen floor and along its walls, locating the same back door through which she had previously strained to see. After hurrying over to unlock it, the beam alighted on a strange door that had no knob. She frowned, decided trying to see within was futile, and turned back around to head to the basement. The flashlight illuminated a note sitting on the kitchen counter. Hurrying over, Emma glanced only briefly at the kitschy stationery before squinting to read the text. "Gary, looks like someone broke the lock on the basement window and got in the house since the last time I was over here. They stole the goddamn fuse, so the power is out. There's another fuse around here somewhere, but I don't know where. Left the front door open for you in case I don't hear you drive up. So if you read this note and I haven't heard you yet, just shout. Jerry. Emma frowned, reading the note one more time to be sure. She had definitely shouted for the real estate agent, more than once, both inside and outside the house. Was this some kind of weird prank? Maybe he really was up in the attic. Or deep in the depths of the basement, where the flashlight revealed the monolith of a black doorway had been waiting for her discovery the whole time. She listened, hovering back at the bottom of the stairs while calling toward the ominous room. Hello? Jerry? Nothing. Biting her lip, Emma edged into the basement. It disturbed her to think that open doorway, yawning into a hateful abyss of black nothing, had been there while she was oblivious in the darkness. Anything could have come out to frighten her. Anything or anyone. Palms sweating, Emma raked her flashlight around the basement's laundry room and sighed to notice a workbench against the far brick wall. Upon hurrying over, Emma studied its contents with a frown of uncertainty. The pathetic truth was that she didn't really know what a fuse looked like. What kind of jerk broke into a house to steal a fuse anyway? What purpose would that serve? Maybe that Jerry guy was making stuff up to cover his ass. Maybe the power really had been off the first time he came, and he just forgot to. Emma's blood froze in her veins. Her heart pounded in her ears as she yanked the note from her back pocket. The flashlight held in her mouth, Emma smoothed the note upon the workbench and read its text one more time, now paying full attention. Left the front door open for you. He left the front door open? A leaden weight where her stomach used to be made her lean forward against the workbench. If the real estate agent had left the door open, then somebody had to have locked it. It was locked, right? They had tried it from the outside. Emma had, anyway. Was she wrong? Had she wasted all that time, hand on her forehead? Emma deliriously walked herself back to the events of the past few minutes and tried to decide if she was losing her mind. She really did unlock that front door, didn't she? But then, who locked it after Jerry opened the house? Lips tight with anxiety, Emma glanced aside and tried to think what all this meant. Among dust even thicker than the stuff that coated all the objects upstairs, Emma's eye caught a little round object that triggered long-lost memories of watching her father change a fuse. Breathing a sigh of relief, Emma focused on getting the lights turned on for now. That would reduce her anxiety better than standing in the dark basement, rationalizing away her fears that someone had broken into the house and was there with them that very minute. It was all ridiculous, of course. She made her way over to the fuse box while chiding herself. Who on earth had the least bit of interest in breaking into a house like this? There were no valuables to be had. That much was obvious from the exterior. Nobody but the real estate agent knew they would be there, so it wasn't some crazed person trying to get on television. And if teenagers happened to be in there to graffiti the place and were hidden somewhere in the house, Emma had to figure they'd sneak out when the coast is clear. Either way, it seemed like it just wasn't her problem. After discovering a little clip on the flashlight that allowed her to attach it to her shirt rather than hold it between her teeth when she needed to use both hands, Emma opened the fuse box, found what looked like a spot where one was missing, and screwed the replacement in after blowing it free of dust. Then, with a little prayer under her breath, she hit a likely switch. Something thundered so angrily behind Emma that she screamed and whipped around, woefully unprepared to fight anyone or anything. The washer rattled in a way that seemed to indicate it, too, was ill-equipped for confrontation. Emma's shoulders sagged with relief. She laughed a little, although that laughter was tense. Just what was rattling around in there? Clanging and banging like any minute the glass in the door was going to shatter. Emma's lips pressed into a thin line. She sort of had the feeling that she really didn't want to know, but she tried the door just to say she had. Stuck, thankfully. Nodding to herself, Emma turned to head back upstairs. The pale child darting up the stairwell, the back of his yellow shirt just caught in the beam of the flashlight, made her scream again.